Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner here on YouTube. I'm Angela Porter. I love to draw, an artist now, self-employed, and best known for my adult colouring books. But my artistic style is particularly what I describe as entangled. So I draw on patterns that you find in Zentangle, things I observe in nature and architecture, and many other things in between. And whatever captures my attention. So thank you for joining me. I'll explain why I've been missing in action for a week. Yes, I will. But this here is something that I started, 2 days ago or so, because the reason I've been missing in action is I really needed something that was not too strenuous for me, that would be artistic, that I didn't have to think too much about, and that would start to make me look at patterns and motifs again. So yes, I know I've got my entangled sampler book, but this is a little bit different. I guess it's organising things from various notebooks and sketchbooks where I've got ideas for patterns, but trying to draw them all together in one place. And it's going to take me a long time. And I've got another folder like this ordered that's got bigger rings because I feel I'm going to need a lot more paper than this one will take. But nevertheless, so it's a 6-ring folder. I've had this in my possession for a number of years, and it's very dusty because it's this rainbowish plastic. I love it. The iridescent oil sheeny thing. It's just fantastic. Yeah, so my first section was I've never really looked entirely at the whole list of official Zentangle patterns. I may have missed some, because I know there's plenty of new ones out and about now, but I can link where I found this list in the description. And so I spent quite a few hours going through and making a record of all of them. For the first time ever, I managed to draw Aura Knot. It's a pattern that has frustrated me for years. And others, that's a really messy one, but it'll do. It'll remind me what it is. So I haven't been going for perfect. I've been going for things that are good enough for me to, forgot to put the autofocus on, for me to reference and to use as that kickstart. And the names will help me look them up again in case I forget. So I've actually got, I think I'm up to 5 pages. So you can see here. It's quite a few, some like ding splats. I know that there's examples of this filled in, many of them, or variations on it, but I've just put the basics down because it's something I could use myself. Some patterns I'm really not fussed on. I don't particularly like Elish. I've never come across Gribbets before, but it's a lot like Indirella but with broken lines. That was an interesting one. The Iowa, I like this particular square there. I've liked that for a long time. I think it appeared in my work long before I found Zentangle. But you can see this Mysteria is new to me. The Mano Man there is, and there's another one that's similar elsewhere. Necton is, and so many others. I haven't come across these before. So it's been a really interesting look. I finally managed to understand Pinnacle. Do you know, there are patterns that where you go and you just think, I just can't get this. I don't know how many times over the years I've tried to draw that pattern, and eventually I just gave up. I thought, I'll give it one go. If I make a mess here, it really doesn't matter. I'll just put a little note on the side, Angela, don't try. But I managed to do it. It finally clicked, which is a good idea. I've seen this one before, the pen drills. I do like that. It does look like a knotty branching branch. Pinch is the one that was like the Man of Man. I haven't done Ratoon very well, and there was another one that I haven't done very well that was they used in Project Pack 20, I think, in the first video. We'll come to it now. Things like squids. I'm not a fan of striping, for example, but I've put them in there for completeness, total completeness. It was Waybop, wasn't it? I need a bigger space to draw Waybop, but it's fine. It's there. It reminds me what it looks like, and we can go. And then I've got some of the newer ones. This one I have used in some drawing, but I've used half of it often. as a kind of furled leaf. I know. And then Puyang, mycelium, lovely patterns. I haven't used them much yet, if at all, can't remember. Mirth is one that I do like, not just fill patterns like this in, but others. And then I put Pangaea in there as a reminder. Then I've started on my favourite patterns. For this, I'm sort of like referring to tanglepatterns.com, Linda Farmer's site. But I think I may approach this in a different way. Because I'm putting the names of the designers down, but as long as I put the name of the pattern down, I can always look that up. And I feel it's a bit, some of the name, yeah, I can't organise it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But what I want to show you, so I've got all my botanicals and organics I'm starting to put in. Now these, they will be put not as individual tangles or patterns or motifs or whatever. They're going to flow. This one is a tangle pattern called Allium. Can't remember who it's by. Oh, I can look it up because I think it's here. Is it? Yeah, JJ La Barbera. And I like that there, like a leaf tangle. It's a bit different to how it's drawn. And then Anti-Dots, who I don't know who that's by. That's kind of like, what's it called? Xander. And this is 3, and is it 3 and 6? Or it's something like that. I can't remember, but it's nice. And these are Abundies, which I've actually managed to draw those for the first time as well. But what I wanted to look at with you is something I've been doing for the last couple of hours, really. And I've been drawing some ribbons and borders because if you know my work, you know that I tend to put a lot of arches and borders in to separate places out. And so ribbons and border patterns are things that I use a lot of. And I like to vary them, and often my mind will automatically spark to others. And I realised it's been a long, long time since I took a pattern and looked at all the variations of it. So these are the ones I've done. And I thought, I've done so far, there's going to be tons of pages because I do love ribbons and borders. And I need to reference all my work on Romanesque architecture and Gothic architecture and so on for others, as well as arts and crafts and Art Nouveau and medieval manuscripts, patterns from prehistory. Yeah, I know. There's just loads of places for inspiration. So I am using, this is A5 paper, it's dot grid, it's got 6 holes punched. You can buy it like this. Rather than using a sketchbook, it gives me the flexibility of either redoing things or rearranging things. And I like the dots because it helps me to keep things a little bit neater for me. And every now and again, this is exactly what I need in life. I'll explain in a moment. So I will write at the top my ribbons and borders. So my line, if you want to know, the capitals at the beginning of the letters, the main capitals are 1.5 squares high. And then I've made that loop of the R, that half square. And then all the others will be one square high. So the B will be 1.5 high. And this is another reason I love dot grid paper. These dots on this one are actually quite noticeable. I ordered some new paper and the dots are, I'm going to attach that to the letters actually. There. The dots are less noticeable, but they do work right. Excuse me for a moment, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera down just a little bit and we'll get in closer for you. Is that okay? Yeah, I think so. And then what I found is that I can't have 3 ribbons that are 8 squares long. So I'm going to do one that's 8 squares. 2, 4, 6, 8, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yep. And 2 squares high because I find this is the perfect height for me. Okay, I put the shorter one in the middle. 2, 4, 6, 7. Once you've got the first lot set out, it's a lot easier just to repeat them down. And I'm not putting any names of these in because I'm sure that the patterns are elsewhere or will be elsewhere. So, and I'm putting a double border at the top, so I'm bottom. It just makes them feel finished. There are some ribbons or borders that don't have straight edges like this, but you can still work with them that way. I've got a couple to show you. Okay, the first one is a pattern I particularly like. It's called Adalpha. So I'm going to turn my paper on the side, move it over this way a bit, and it starts with a teardrop shape that goes in a little bit diagonally. Now it sort of bends this way, so the next one's going to curve in the opposite direction, and it's going to start here and go up. Turn my paper again. I can actually draw it without turning my paper, but I know that not everybody can do that. Like so. And then I can fit the last one in there. Now I'm sure there are a myriad ways of filling this in, but I'm going to keep it quite simple here, and I'm just going to pop in lines with dots on the end, like so. You could fill all of this section, each of these sections in black, or with tipple. But I quite like to do it like this. I like that extra bit of black that's there. So I've done that. Actually, if I fill all of that in, that's what it looks like with a fine white border. I'll fill this one in with black. And this is something I often do, as you may have noticed, if you've ever watched me, my earlier videos where I've done fragments of your imagination, for example, or the Inktober Tangle challenge. I often will work with variations, but put the variations on the same tangle because I can see what the possibilities are. So this one, I'm going to leave a border like that. Said we could fill this with lines. We could fill it with something like tipple. Or we could fill it with lines that kind of borrow this shape in a kind of fan. And many others. I mean, I could have extended this for the whole length of the page, but it gives me starting points. Okay, the next one, I'm going to, instead of splitting this up into squares, I'm splitting it up into rectangles. And I'm going to pop a curve at the top, like so. And then I'm just going to pop this inside to turn it into, I suppose, a simplified crescent moon. Only one border around it. It looks like a pile of logs. But if you make these longer, it looks almost like you've cut the top off diagonally, and it can be quite stunning. Sometimes it can be fun to put another one at the bottom, so I'll do this on these three here. which gives a different kind of look, which is fun. Okie dokes, next one. Going back to splitting this up into squares. And here I'm going to draw squares in the middle. They don't have to be a precise square. They don't have to be precisely in the middle, but as middle-ish as you can get it, like so. And then I'm going to join the corners of the inner square and outer square with little diagonal lines. Now this, depending on how you shade it and pattern it, can bring out different things. If you emphasize this part here in the middle, it gives a different feel to the pattern. You see a different pattern to it than if you say shadow this one and this one, or shadow the one in the middle. That's where the fun comes with this one. But I do have a couple of other variations. So I'm going to change what I did on my page. No, I'm going to do the same as I did on my original page here. What I'm going to do is I'll put the two variations underneath this one so I can see the connection easily between them. Okay, so while I'm doing this, the last week has been a fairly peopley one for me, and also one where I've had days where I've struggled, or I've been absolutely exhausted from the peopling. Okay, so here I am putting these squares in as I did on the other one, so I can do that as I talk. I had a couple of AGMs to go to, for organisations I belong to. I had a talk or two to give. I had a friend visit, which was lovely, but I still get quite stressed about such things. And it's just all taken its toll on me. And over the weekend, I came back from an AGM Saturday. It was 3 hours long, nearly. And there were a fair amount of people there. It was a bit of, as you do, discussion. And, I had to raise my hand and object to something at one point. Well, 2 points, actually. Politely. But I was absolutely exhausted when I get home. It's all to do with me wearing a mask, because I put this happy smiley mask on round people so they don't see what's really going on underneath. And that's happened a number of times this week. And so Sunday, I woke up, after meeting Tuesday, then something Wednesday, then something Thursday, and Friday. Thursday I had a bit of a meltdown. Friday, friend visited, Saturday at an AGM. I woke up Sunday and I had what's best described as an introvert hangover. I was exhausted. I had a headache. My stomach was all upset, beginning to feel upset. It really crescendoed to a serious upset yesterday. And that's all to do with the stress and strain and everything. So I've been sleeping a lot or unable to do much. So I thought I'd let you know I am a lot better in many ways. It's just finding the right balance for me of being with people, or the right speed at which I increase the time I spend around people after the best part of 3 years, mostly on my own. And it is a bit of a conundrum for me, but I will get there in the end. And I'm learning a lot about myself I didn't understand before, by the way. So it's as vexatious as it can be. And the medication certainly does help, for the anxiety and depression. It does help, but it doesn't stop this. In some ways, it tends to mask it. So I'm unaware that perhaps I need to stop for a while and just sit and be. I've barely done any art this week. I've done an awful lot of hyperbolic crochet, which is a whole different story. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 2 little lines like this to the top and the bottom on this one. And you can see that it ends up, I always think they look like bobbins you'd put thread on, whichever way you look at it. But on the one next door, I'm going to do it on the opposite. Oh no, shoot. Where's my white jelly roll? I'm alternating them from top and bottom to side and side. There we are. That's okay, I'll sort that one out in a moment, I'm sure. And then with this one, because I could put those lines all at the top, which would be similar to putting them here, but it gives, I like the shapes I get where they join in the middle. Now, even though these patterns here I'm using as borders or ribbon patterns, they could be done as a big grid pattern. There's no problem with that. Just very, very simple, but very effective. And as I've said, it all comes down to whether you, excuse me a moment. Oh, it's a souffle, I don't want a souffle. I've got a jelly roll here, because that will bug me. It'll bug me even more, though, as the paper's cream. I'm just dotting the jelly roll ink on the top of the pen, because the pen doesn't leak through as much. But depending on how you shade them or add other patterns, because you don't have to stick to these, but I really like things like this. I like the way this feels now, like it's a sharp edge, a pointy edge, and that these are set further back. And you can put things inside, you can put a square or a circle in there, or anything you like would work. It's just the basics of it. And the bigger you draw these, the more space you've got to put things in. Okay, now here I am going to put circles in the middle of squares of 4, big squares made up of 4 little squares. And then I'm going to draw little leaf shapes or little petal shapes to the corners of these squares. Now, because I've got the dots and I'm used to drawing dots with dot grids, I'm able to work out where things need to go. I could have popped a pencil grid in, but I didn't want the outside lines, and you'll see why now in a moment. So I've got this lovely row here of flowers. Now that is lovely on its own, I really like that. Though there are lots of ways of connecting these here. One way I'm actually going to put a circle here on the top. And underneath the circle, I'm just going to fill it in with some black. It helps to separate the circle from the centre. And at the bottom, I'm going to pop in a point of a triangle or a square and a smaller one inside. So I've got 2 variations on one pattern. Of course, knowing me, my fingers are itching for another piece of paper where I can go to town with variations of this. So in the centre, it looks very uninspiring. I could just fill it all with black, but I think that would be just a bit too much. So I'm going to draw a diamond shape inside there. So I'm auraing or echoing, or sort of like drawing a smaller version of the shape that's these petals have created. And I'm going to fill that with black for the drama of the graphic nature, contrast. And so just with very simple things, I've gone from a very simple kind of pattern to something that's quite ornate. And of course, if you want to, which I would do if I was using this as a pattern, I'm not going to do it all the way along. Perhaps I'll do halfway along, just as a reminder to myself that, oh, didn't do this one, did I? But we can also put an aura around the outside to hold this together. And then that gives the option to put things on the edge there. like that. So I've put little dots on the top there, which is quite fun. So I've actually gone from just gone from this simple version to this, lots of variations on. So I'm doing that. Now then, this next one is a little bit more challenging. I'm going to find, I'm sure I've got a pencil here somewhere. I have, there it is. So I am going to draw in pencil lines here, and I am going to draw in I'm going to use that as the guide because I want to start with a circle, a small circle here. I want to leave one of the dots, so I want a longer space, circle, circle, circle. Then underneath here, I don't want to put the circles underneath these. I want to go in between them at the bottom. So I'm going to go down here with the same distance. So it's between those two, between those, and then one at the end. Okay. And then I'm going to join these with little arcs, like so. And so don't forget the half ones on the end. But what I'm doing is I'm going almost from the top of the circle, so from the inside of the circle to the side of the circle there. And then what I can do, I can put a very fine aura in here. It ends up looking quite lacy in some ways, almost like it's some kind of lace. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a line here and a line here. No, I don't need to do that. I can see here I've got this dot, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw down the bottom ones like this, and like this. And then I'm going to do the same with the top lines, but I'm going to stop a little bit short of the curves again. So these overlap just a little bit. Or they overlap, you know what I mean. So much easier to show than it is to use words. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to join the circles together with leaves with these little petal shapes on the diagonals. Could have done the diagonals first, I just realised. I think I did in my original version, but it works out either way. So I've now got what looks like a row of flowers upside down and downside up. So what I'm going to do here is at the tops, I'm going to put between these on the top little petals in between sticking up, and at the bottom little petals in between sticking down. And again, however we decide to shade this will help to bring out those. So that is sort of like it's a nicely interesting flowery ribbony pattern. Okay, so I quite like that one. All right. So I will draw one of these. The next one I won't be using a border popped in at all. So like this. And I am going to draw in a grid of little squares. Dot grids paper really does help, and I like dot grids for my pattern books and things. My original book that you've seen, the brown one, is dot grid paper. So yeah, so what I'm going to do here is inside each of these squares, I'm going to pop in, again, another little leaf shape, but in a diagonal pattern. And then underneath, it's going to do the same. So essentially, I'm creating a row of flowers again. So it's similar to this in some ways. Then what I'm going to do in the middle here of these circular parts, you see it's almost like we've got circles here and these diamond shapes in between. I'm going to draw a square, or a curvy square, like a curvy diamond shape, just a bit smaller than the space, so we have a little border left round. You can do this without the actual lines drawn in if you wish. I'll be showing you how you can do the essence of this on the next pattern. And then here we're going to do the same here, but it's only half the square, so a triangle with curved sides. Like so. Okay, so that looks really cool. I like that. Shading really does help to bring this to life. I've created this actually a lot darker than this one here. Can you see I've made my squares inside a lot bigger, whereas this one I left it a lot lighter. So just a simple variation like that changes things. Okay, so here I'm going to start at this point and I'm going to draw my petals diagonally. Then I'm going to draw the next one and the next one, and I'm going to keep on going like this. Until I come to the end of this section, which is one more pair of these. And this one you can really see that circular shape inside. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a tiny open circle. Here it will be a half circle, and with these it will also be a little half circle. Quarter circle on the corners. No lines needed unless you want to put them in. That I really love. It's very lacy. It's very lovely. It's lovely. Okie dokes. So, excuse me, I need to find some tissue a moment. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, here we are back again, as one does. Okie dokes. So, righty ho then. Here we go. Let's have a look at this one, and I'll do a variation of it next door as well, because this is another one that I absolutely love, but rarely ever use now. I think the problem is that there are so many possible patterns or motifs you can use that you can forget things you used to love or haven't used for a while. And there needs to be, for me, I need a reference of some kind for this. So with both of these, I'm going to split these into squares. And that's why I started my, sort of like a notebook full of things that I like, because I had something then to look back on to spark that creativity when I needed it, or to thinking I'm drawing the same things over and over. How can I freshen this up? Where can I keep my newest favourite things, my new things I've discovered, or my new variations I love, and keep them together? So this is how sort of like the entangled samplers, is a oh, what do you call it? An evolution of this idea. Because in the Entangled Samplers book, I'm putting patterns together in a way that's pleasing for me and using lots of different patterns from my book. This one is a way of organising things in a different way to the book, because things are not always easy to find in there. I know I can create a border out of any pattern, and I most probably could create a pattern out of any border, and any motif can be turned into a border just by, you know what I mean, or elements of it and so on. But yeah, so this is the reason for this. And I thought I'd share this with you because it does take some time, for sure. I mean, it's going to be a long-term project. And it's not the first time I've attempted to do this. I do get terribly overwhelmed with the task, as I do with most tasks, to be honest. I can get very overwhelmed very easily. So here, where the lines I've drawn are, I'm essentially drawing a leaf shape there and half a one at each end. So I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to put an aura around them, quite a narrow one, using the Zentangle term. I'm drawing a border around them, like so. Now I most probably could squeeze another one in here, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come down to the middle, and I'm going to aura this way. So I'm creating two little triangles and the corners meet in the middle, the pointy bits meet in the middle, like so, which creates an interesting pattern. Now this becomes interesting when you add pattern to it. Now then, I've done this with the leaf shapes vertically. What about if I do them horizontally along the edge of the ribbon? So I'm drawing half leaf shapes in the whole squares, and the end one's just a half one. So it's the same kind, it's the same fragment. So this is the fragment I've used. Here I'm using it this way up. The other way I used it the opposite way. And I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to aura these spaces. Like so. And then I'm going to create these shapes here. Now, what I am going to do, she says, hopefully, I think I'm going to do, shall I? Because I did use colour in my other ones. So I've got here, oh, the pen I'm drawing with is a Sakura Micron 03. This is a Statedler Triplus fineliner, and it's a sort of like it's nice reddy brown colour. Getting the Sakura Pigma brown pens in the UK at this time is an absolute frightener. And the pens have gone up in price from about £2 something each to over £3 and sometimes even more. I'm absolutely gobsmacked because it's been a while since I've looked. So I've ordered some of the Triplus pens and the colours I like to use. Though I couldn't find the vintagey mossy green that I love. Get the olive green, which I haven't done. I'll look around elsewhere for those. Because sometimes I do like a bit of colour for a bit of variation. And I think here, with these particular patterns, I think I can see the way I can use colour well. Said, I like this vintagey kind of colour. And I also want to colour in these little bits here. Now, I could do them in black, which would add some drama. But for this one, I'm just going to do them in this colour as well, perhaps. And yeah, I will add some shadow to these. I'm going to do one here because that will really help to bring some volume out with these, or dimension. Either way of describing it works. Feeling that the drawing isn't flat, like a piece of paper, but it has some dimension on it. So I've done that with the red. This one, I think I'm going to do this one here with black. I'm really surprised with this micron because I have used it and used it, and the nib has become quite flattened and squashed, and yet I'm still using it. So I'm having a few quiet days out of necessity more than anything, because otherwise I'm just going to burn myself out. Thank goodness my stomach has calmed down today, calmed down overnight. That is something I do get when I'm stressed. And as I said, the medication helps me to regulate my anxiety and depression, but it doesn't stop it. And I'm actually glad about that in some ways, because I can't have it completely masked by the meds, because I would just keep on going and going until I burn myself out again, which is what happened after my first big breakdown burnout. Don't know how to describe it. Actually, I do like that black along the centre, and I think I'm going to... Now, which one shall I do black? I could do these black again. I could do those. I think I might just do these in black. Because I think all of that lovely reddy brown is just a bit much. It doesn't help bring the beautiful patterns here out. The other way you can approach this is to fill these in with lines, either horizontally, or you could fill it with berries or seeds or whatever else you like to create something else. But I quite like that black with that. That's created something that's quite nicely dramatic. Okay, I'm not going to do these, but I've done variations on night bridge and floors. These ones I'd like to have a little look at with you, if that's okay. Yeah, good. This Knight's Bridge and the variations of it are fairly simple, but I've put them in there as a reminder that they are really nice to use as well. So for this one, I'm also going to split this into sections, and I'm going to do 3 of them. So I will pop them one underneath the other. And it may be that I'll end up keeping this one and ditching the one I did earlier, which wouldn't surprise me at all. I really like those. I do. I'm so glad I've ordered some of these Triplus pens. They're not waterproof. They are water soluble, which makes them really interesting to use with a water brush or a damp brush as well. Okay, so for this one, again, I'm going to these nice big shapes like this, and I'm going to alternate them in this variation. And this one. Next one, I'm going to do them all in the same direction. You get a different feel just from changing this. Not quite as big. What I'm going to do with these ones is I'm going to draw a smaller version of that leaf shape inside. So I've got a kind of edge going on there. And then at the bottom, because I do prefer the variation that goes zigzags from side to side. Something lovely about the rhythm. Okay, so we're going to do 3 variations here. So with this one, I'm going to start by drawing in the middle of each the biggest, roundest seed, circle-ish kind of shape, berry, bubble, whatever you want to call it, like that. Yeah, they do look a bit like eyes, but trust me, they're not going to for long. Now then, the next question is, do I have a finer pen here? I think I do, possibly. It's finding one. That's the problem. Ugh. Seriously, Angela, why do you do this to yourself? It's true. I can be a bit of an idiot at the best of times. It's black. Put some grey ones in here. That's sepia. I don't want sepia. Oh, hang on. That's no 5. That's too fat. That's no 5. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Oh, hang on. That's an 03. Another 03. Yep. Ah. Browns. Should we get another? Oh. No. Not. Got an 01. There we are. That'll do. Was hoping I'd have the dark grey in 01 in here, but I obviously mislooked at my pens. Okay, so I'll use the 01 because what I want to do here is I'm going to aura around this, and I'm going to leave a little break in all but the one closest to this seed. That little break just gives a little highlight in the middle, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but I'm going to use solid lines. These lines are curving to match the curve of that central shape. So like that. I'll do this one in the same way, in the middle, but without the sparkle, so you can see the difference. And then on the edge here, I'll do something a bit different. I'm going to draw a border in like that, and then I'm going to draw lines on a diagonal, something a little bit different. Okay. Here, I'm going to draw lines like that inside the shape. So we get something different, and I will draw a solid border in there, so we get that there. And then I'm going to go this way. This way. Now the problems I've got with this one is there's no real difference between the filling pattern and this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some cross-hatched lines inside to make that darker, and that helps to bring that out. I could have just filled it in. Then here, what I'm going to do here, in fact I can do that with my thicker pen, it'll be a lot easier. I'm going to put an aura inside and just fill that area in, like so. Put a nice thick line here, and then we'll just fill that like this, and then you can see how where they join together the same way, you get this lovely kind of crease feeling. So I'll do that kind of idea in this one. Here with this one, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put one seed in the middle of each. But then I'm going to draw these, fill these with some more seeds, as if the seeds are tucked one behind each other. So they're like little seed pods. I'm just filling in any little gaps that there may be around those little circles and the pod that contains them. So we get nice rounded looking seeds here. Like so. And then I'm going to just borrow these top and bottom. And again, I'm using my 01 pen. It's really lovely. This is a brand new 01. It's always lovely when you have new ones, and then I forget that I shouldn't be pressing as hard as I can, and suddenly the nibs all go a bit squiffy. I like to use different sized pens in my drawings, but I often forget. And I end up thickening lines with a pen and often making a real mess of it. No worries though. It is what it is. So here you can see how we've got almost like a pillow kind of feeling. And again, that can be brought out with shading. So on this one, I'm going to fill these in. I'm just going to do solid lines here. What I'm going to try to do kind of, is if I can, I'll try and match these lines up side by side, but I think it doesn't really matter too much because they're so close together. People are likely to need a magnifying glass to see if you've actually done the same number and that they join up on the edge there. So, here too. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it seems my brain, my body, is getting used to the antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, which is fantastic because it means my head is a lot clearer. I'm not so drifting off as much. I can get that way if I've done too much. Or if I've had a peopley day, then it's just way too much for me. But I'll do smaller white borders or white stripes and thicker black ones here just for that dramatic kind of feeling. And I'll try it the other way round in the next one, perhaps, where perhaps I do narrow black lines. And these I am curving because I want to give this the feeling that there's a seed in here, sort of like this leaf-shaped seed or grain of rice-shaped seed. And then this one, I'll try and make them about the same width. Say about. I'm not going to measure it with a ruler or anything. Okay, let's have a look. There we go. So slightly different feels to each. And then what I'm going to do to the last one is I'm going to put a big black one right across the middle. And I haven't left any white space in the middle because that's what gel pens are for when you're working in a small space. And so we've got that one there, which is all starting off with the same kind of idea, that shape in the middle and adding shadow on either side to make them feel like almost like pillows. So I really do like that one. So that's where I'm going to leave this one for now, because we've done a fair amount in this video. I'm not quite sure how long it is. I know this section where I've added these is about 20 minutes. But what I do have, take my glasses off first so I can, oh, excuse me. So I can see here what I'm doing is grey. got that one. Right. So what I have here is I've got a Derwent ColourSoft pencil. I've got two actually. I've got Persian grey and I've got steel grey. And I have here a blending pencil. I am not going to use graphite or chalk pastels in this book because they smudge, whereas coloured pencil doesn't, especially, and a blender pencil will allow you to get smooth gradients. So I'm just going to look here at how we can add some shadow to these. So here with this one, I'm adding the pencil to the top. So I'm putting a fine edge down at the top and the bottom of the darker grey, and then I'm going to use the lighter grey next door to it, so we're getting a gradient. And I'm not putting a lot down here. I'm using a very light hand because I don't want to obscure the ink. This is a Derwent blender pencil, which you can buy, but there are many other brands. I've also got a Prismacolor. I think somewhere I've got some Caran d'Ache ones, I think it is. Yeah, sort of like there are plenty of different kinds of blender pencils out there. Prismacolors I actually do like. They seem to work really nicely. They seem to melt or dissolve the coloured pencil a bit more. So I quite like that, and that gives it some dimension. This one, I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on one side and a bit more on the next. So I'm going to make it dark next to the line, and I'm just going to pull it up a little bit and perhaps a little bit on the other side of the line. So it looks like this line it's slightly in shadow on one side, but a lot more shadow on the other side. And we're going to do the same here. Just a bit there, and this one needs to come up a bit there. Okay, and then I'll use the blender pencil again, and all this does is it softens this out and blends the colour out, something a bit more even, in a similar way that a tortillon will do with graphite or chalk pastel. So you can get blending fluids like Gamsol, there's a Zest-It and others, but I can't use those. The whatever the chemicals are in them, they set my asthma off. So, but this will do. It gives me that idea of how I can get things looking quite dimensional. This one, I think I'm going to do this differently to how I did on my other page, where I'm going to put some shadow inside here to the top and the right. So I'm putting a fair amount of shadow in here, a fair amount of pencil. Pick up my lighter pencil and just fill in the rest. Oh, this is a nice bluey grey. I like that one, the steel grey. Favourite one. It's a nice cool grey. The pencils I'm using are Derwent ColourSoft because the colour inside them really is quite soft. It's not as soft as a chalk pastel, obviously, but it's really nice. With this one, I'm just going to put some shadow in the centre here where the petals meet the inner balls, as it were, the centres. And yeah, I'm just going to blend this out. If you can see how it blends, but it really does move outwards just that little bit. The other advantage of using a blender is that it really does help to fix the coloured pencils in place. So there's no chance of them smudging. There we go. So that's added some there. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little smile at the bottom of these little circles here and just blend those in a circular motion just to create a bit of shadow there on those. I could add some shadow underneath this. Like so. And I am again going to use this just to blend the pencil in, make it smoother, but also to move it a little bit further out, just to give a gradient. So that helps to lift that up and off the paper. Okay, this one here, I need an eraser. That's going to be fun, finding one. Oh, it's a sand eraser, it'll do. No, it won't. It's erasing everything. Oh no! I know I've got one in here. I'll put one in here. Can I find it? Oh. Okay, perhaps I'm going to put some shading underneath these arches here on both sides. And then I'm going to blend that down. Idiot that I am. So as long as I don't overdo peopley things, I'm going to be fine. I do have to say it is lovely to see that spring is springing into action here. It is really lovely. My trip on Sunday to do this talk, you know, daffodils are still out, primroses are coming out, but there were some trees that had the leaves on them. There was magnolia buds beginning to show. I'm not sure if it was blackthorn or prunus or something. There was even a flowering cherry in bloom when I got to where I was going. So that was really, really lovely. Okay, with this one here, I'm just going to shadow it along the top and the bottom very simply. So you can see what that looks like. So it really brings the centre of that into highlight, so it gives some dimension there. This one, I'm actually going to put shadow at the base of these sides, you know, where these lines are connected to. The squares. And that then will make this appear that these are, the squares are further down and set back from these bits that are sticking up. And we could do the same with the others, but yeah, I think we'd have to. Although we could put a little bit of shadow underneath the top border, just to suggest this border, this edge here, is a little bit higher than the border within, and the same at the bottom. That'll work quite nicely. That's really nice. Yeah, that works. Interesting pattern. I do like that pattern. This one here, I am going to put shadow under the top, and I'm using the darker grey for this, which I think is the Persian grey. Like so. I'm not worried that it's going over the brown or over the black lines because it's not dark enough that it will hide the lines. I think I can still draw over the top of the pencil if I need to after I've used the blender anyway. Just need to give the ink a little bit longer to actually dry on it, but it will. So we've got that one there. That works quite nicely again. And we need some highlight in the middle. This one I'm going to do differently. I'm going to add shadow quite dark where the central line is, but blending upwards that little bit. I'm going to take it over the brown bits as well. So I'm going back and forth over it until I get the density colour I want. Spread it out a little bit, and then I'll just come in with this and I will just blend it out down to the brown as well, because the brown will need some as well. I think it's actually picking some of the brown up, mixing it in, which actually is quite a nice kind of effect. So that's working nicely. This one here, I'll tell you what I'm going to do very quickly. I wonder if that's Amazon for me. This is going to be fun. I'm going to leave a border, but I'm going to fill in. Yeah, I'm using a lighter, more yellowy brown. More like a yellow ochre. So I'm expecting something from Amazon. I've had to buy new mugs. My glass mugs, I've all but destroyed them all. I've had a bit of a week for accidents, as well as breaking a mug and various other ththings. I also fell over, managed to twist my foot underneath me, so I hurt my ankle, I've skinned my knee. I'll come back to that one. I'll give that a little time to dry. Actually, I think I might do the same with these, to be honest. Just leaving a border around the colour. I don't normally do that, but I just thought I'd see whether I like it. Because like many of you, I've been watching the Project Pack 20 videos by Zentangle. Because it's always nice to watch people draw. And do things like this. And I think, oh, I've never done that. Okay, we get the lighter grey. I don't think it's Amazon. Though they did say that it would be delivered between 5 and 10 tonight. So I've got plenty of time until 5 o'clock. What time is it? Oh, it's 3:15. So I'm putting the colour along the lines and the edges here, because I really do want to bring the pillow shape out of these little sections here. So I'm blending in the middle. I'm not blending out too much. I'm really just trying to soften the colour and blend the slightly uneven application of colouring pencil out, which is why these blenders are blooming brilliant. Like so. So that's already starting to put some shadow there. But I also want to put some shadow on these bits here. So I'm going to put some at the bottom, some at the top. I'm not worried at all this goes over the black ink, because I've said the black ink will still show through. We've already seen that in other places. We might get a slight change in the colour of the black, but I can live with that. And I will then just blend that in and soften it out. Just to give us that. This one here, let me do this one, because this one, I'm definitely going inside these shapes, because we need something to help us separate the different areas of this pattern, and this can be the way that we do it. So let me have a look. Yeah. So I'll just blend that out. Not blending it out very far. It's more a case of blending it into one another and getting a smoother finish, as I keep saying. So that's already made these appear that they're set backwards. So I'm just going to add some shadow along the top and the bottom, and some on these lines as before, just to bring out that pillowing. And to have these narrow borders just feel like that's set back inside, almost like they're held in place by a channel. This one, definitely going to do top and bottom, just like that. Then both sides of this line, like so. And find my blender. Just have a look at this. Like so. And I think the only other thing I need really is some shading inside here with these little seeds. I think I'll just put shadow at each end and then just blend it forward and keep the one in the centre the lightest one, I think. You can still see there's others there hidden in the shadows as I wander off the screen again. Sorry about that. I don't know why I do that. Okay. So the last thing I'd like to do is to use a the souffle. It's a Gelly Roll pen, just to add some highlights. So this one I don't really want to. This one I'm going to pop some here. May not be very noticeable to begin with, but I think it will make a bit of a difference, especially here with these. Come back to these other ones in a moment. So I'm going to put a spot of white in the middle of each of these, especially where they disappear into the shadows, because I'm assuming they're going to show up. I'm just putting a row of white dots down the middle of this, along the black and the white. I'm not going to stop. Like so. So that puts the highlights in there. I'm not sure if you can see them. I'm going to do something similar here where I'm going to let's put these in, perhaps dot them around. Obviously, if you prefer to use white charcoal or white chalk or some other way of adding a highlight, please do. As I said, in this, I'm not using anything that will smudge, because I don't want anything smudging. And I'm going to do the same here along the whole length. I'm just going to dot this where the highlight would be. I don't mind if it lands on one of the black lines and obscures it. It's sparkly. I just want some sparkly there. I'm going to add the white dots in the middle here, I think, and at the top. Edges. Just to bring some lightness back into this. Oh, I haven't added any shadow to that one or that one. Snap it. That'll look nice. This one, I'm going to add some shadow on the inside top of these, like so, and then the ones underneath where we've got that shape repeated like that. I think I'll be able to just blend those out just that little bit. And that works. That just lifts it all up, doesn't it? Lifts those up. So, move that down. Used a combination of pens and things today to create all of these borders. So I hope you found it interesting and useful, and I look forward to seeing you again in my next video. So until then, take care, look after yourselves, and above all else, be creative. Bye-bye for now.